Dear students, back to our history class. In the last history class, we have discussed about the first portions about Russian Revolution, where we have discussed only about the background of that situations of Russia and the other part of Europe. And we discussed and also told that in Russian Revolution, it has two parts, two major incidents together known as French Russian Revolution. First session of that changes that happened in Russia was in February 1917. It's known as February Revolution. And after that February, some more different type of social changes and political changes happened in Russia, and that led to October Revolution. And October Revolution is really known as Russian Revolution, October of 1917. So we need to discuss both these revolutions today in detail. Whatever incident led to the fall of monarchy in Russia, what other social or economic conditions were there existed in Russia, etc. need to study in detail. All those incidents together made Russia a monarchy-less administration in 1917 February. So just we can see that in 1914, during the period of First World War, Russia was an empire under Tsar Nicholas II. He was the ruler of Russia. Tsar is the title used by the Russian emperors. Tsar for male member, Tsarina for female member. So Tsar Nicholas II was the ruler of Russia during 1914, when that activities or the situations for Russian Revolution, that is February Revolution, were taking place. And this Russian Empire was included not only the areas near to Moscow, it comprised with the areas of present Finland, Latvia, Lithuania, and areas of Poland or Ukraine or Belarus, etc. were a part of our Russian Empire. Other than these areas, some more parts of our Eastern Asian areas also were a part of our Russian Empire itself. When we are talking about the population of Russia, majority, that is around 80% of the Russian population were pure farmers. That is somewhat more better population or percentage of population in other countries of the world. Here we have around 80% of them were farmers or peasants, and many of them had in their own area. The area in which they were cultivating were either the areas of the nobles or any other large landowners. And they were cultivating as much as possible different grains, and once Russia was one of the largest exporter of different food grains to other part of the world. Other than peasants, some other group of people were extremely laborers or workers also were there. As it is a period of industrial revolution and many other new different factories or industries were opening up in different part of Russia, lots of workers were there in that section also. And there also we can identify that craftsmen or metal artwork also were going on in large number in Russian population or in Russian locality. Coal, iron and steel industries, etc. also flourished in different parts of Russia during those time. And by 1900, almost workers and the craftsmen's numbers were almost equal. So craft work is going on in one side, workers of different factories were there in one other side, and peasants were also comprised the majority population of majority part of Russian population. Even though majority of the factories were or industries were private owned, government also had its own interference to ensure the maximum or minimum level quality of the workers and factory workers or laborers there. That means in order to manage their wages or to reduce their or to manage or to control their working time, etc. But even though government control also was going on, some other remote areas with the factories had their working hours above 15 hours of continuous work were there in one area, or 10 to 12 hours of continuous work also were allotted for some of the workers in another area. Anyway, laborers were there in one side with a large scope of opportunities of job as numbers of industries or factories open up during those times. Among the different type of workers or laborers, they had many different type of divisions among them. That means according to the quality of the job that they are doing, or the salary or the wages that they are earning, etc. They made into number of different divisions or groups. And among them, metal workers considered themselves as a little bit better than others and considered them as aristocrats. And they believed that their position is very high in society, mainly because that their job needed special skills and training, etc. And they considered themselves as greater than others. But anyhow, whenever any problem happen, all the different sections of laborers will join together to strike or to make their struggles against the owners of factories, and to stop all type of factory works, and to make a lot of losses for the owners. So some different types of differences or divisions are there, but will join whenever there is any kind of common issue happen. Such a kind of situation were prevailed during those time among the workers in industries. And in case of peasants also, they also had their own different type of gang or groups. The different group of peasants were not based on any other qualities, etc., but mainly because on their different religious activities that they follow. And we know that majority population of Russia was peasants or farmers, but the majority land was owned by either the king or by the noble group or by the clergies or church itself. So these peasants were depending on this land of nobles or kings or etc. So even though there was no any good relation between the clergies or nobles and peasants in another side, they used the land of the upper section to get an earning for them. But in gradual time, whenever different conflicts or confusions happened among these two groups, that is peasants in one side and owners in another side, that means the peasants had a tendency to attack or to kill or to take the properties of their landlords whenever they have a chance. And in 1900 or after those time, the number of killing or murder case of the landlords who were killed by the peasants were increased into a large number. So the total population and the religious structure together mixed and made into many more conflicts during those time. One of the speciality of the Russian peasants, they were entirely different from the peasant community of other part of Europe. And what is that speciality is that they had a practice of pooling all the different areas of their agricultural land and will work together. And the land will be divided by their commune or by their mir or their leader according to the necessity or the requirement of each individual. So there will be no a lot of land for a person who need very less, and there will be no any problem shortage of land who have lots of needs. So according to the requirement of the workers or the peasants, the commune or their leader will distribute or will divide the whole land for their proper use. Such a practice or such a system was existed in in Russia during those times. While we are discussing about the political condition of Russia before 1914, it is really interesting because all political parties were considered as illegal. No party were considered ready to or with no permission for any parties to work or to function in Russia during those times. In 1898, under a group of people who were much respect towards had much respect towards the ideologies of Karl Marx, found a party called the Russian Socialist Democratic Workers' Party. But as per the government instructions, this party couldn't work well. But they organized newspapers and arranged strikes or programs against whenever any problem happened. But anyhow, in 1900, Russian Socialist Party was set up, and they believed that the most important work that they have to do in Russia is to fight for the freedom and rights of the peasants. And they believed that as the majority of the Russian population is peasants, it is better to give a chance for them to be a part of Russian administrative activities and to make them more powerful than they before. So the different type of opinions came in this party itself. So it also had a chance to split into two. sorry, the name of the party formed in 1900 is Socialist Revolutionary Party. They were fought for the freedom of Russian peasants and others. Especially they believed that even though majority of them are peasants, the peasants themselves have two groups. Some of them are rich and some others are poor. So they believed that it could not be possible to join them together to fight for their own freedom. So as many different ideologies came within their own party, the same party was divided into two later. One is under the leadership of Vladimir Lenin, and this party came to be known as Bolshevik Party, and Bolshevik means majority. And that majority or the Bolshevik party believed that under a particular condition in India under the Tsarist Russian rulers, the members must be well trained and the number of the members must be controlled. So they had a limitation in their numbers. And the other party was Menshevik. That is, they believed that party must be open to all. So Bolsheviks and Mensheviks were the two important parties formed in Russia during the 1900 onwards. And the February Revolution happened or took place under the leadership of Menshevik party under Alexander Kerensky. Later, after Vladimir Ilyich Lenin and with the members from Bolshevik party, October Revolution happened later. Both of these revolutions were in 1 year, 1917. As Russia was an autocratic country as we know, under Tsar Nicholas II, he was not at all able or not at all willing to be under any kind of constitutional monarchy. And he was not at all a supporter of a parliamentary system also. But the radicals or the revolutionaries of Russia and its different other parts of Russian Empire were willing to or wanted a democratic nation or a kind of representative government there. And they also were supported by different group of people from their own empire itself, including Muslim dominated areas and a group of people for them called Jihadists. Jihadists were a group of Muslims. They also were in favor of having a elected government with representatives. So when Nicholas II, as he was not at all willing for any kind of representative government, lots of problems happened across Russia. And it was one of the most important such an incident that happened in 1905. And what happened is that as the prices for the food grains were increased and the situations were very worse during those time and the wages for the workers were reduced into half, all the situations compelled the workers or the factory workers mainly to come across the different areas of Russia to fight against and also start a different type of strikes under a person called Father Gapon. And lots of factory workers and other workers also rallied under Father Gapon and they demanded especially the reduction in the prices of food grains. But anyhow, the rallying people or the protesters were attacked by the Russian police and Cossacks. Cossacks are the group of soldiers or military trained personalities. So that incident, that means the firing or the attack of the protesters by the police led to the loss of life of many people, that means mainly the protesters. That incident is known as Bloody Sunday because that incident happened on a Sunday. After that Bloody Sunday, a series of such problems were started in different parts of towns of Russia in different areas. All that incidents together called the Revolution of 1905 or 1905 Revolution. So one another important background situations which made the people ready to fight against that autocratic rule under Tsar Nicholas II was the 1905 Revolution. And we know that in 1914, when the First World War started, Russia also was a participant of that First World War. And we know the Europe together made into two blocks or two parties or two alliances. One side with the Germany, Austria and Turkey, TAG, TAG. And in another side, Britain, France and Russia. Anyhow, during those time, Russian people also had a support in the beginning towards the First World War, and they gave their maximum support for Nicholas II. But anyhow, as the war continued for many continuous years, the feeling towards the German people started to be a little bit hatred from the side of Russians. And in order to show their anti-German feeling, the people of Russia changed one name of some of the important places also. St. Petersburg was the name that already had in Russia, but it was renamed as Petrograd because St. Petersburg is a Germany, and they also had their angry towards the Tsarina, that is the wife of Tsar, Tsarina Alexandra. She had her birth, or she had her origin from German country. So together many problems were to add their angry towards Germany. And during those time, in order to support the Nicholas II or to advise Nicholas II, there was one of the great person called a person, Rasputin, was considered as one of the greatest advisor of Nicholas II, and people believed that all the wrong decisions are taken by Nicholas II mainly because of the advices given by this person. So many problems were there. Means the advice given by Rasputin was a matter for people to feel angry towards Nicholas, and his willingness to continue in the First World War without having no any single question, or without having or without seeking the permission of parliament that he himself is created, etc., made people to feel their angry towards Nicholas II. And in the battlefield also, the soldiers hit heavily. Lots of millions of people lost their life in the war front itself because they were forced to wage their war in front of the others without having any proper shelter. So losing their own life, and also the unwillingness of the soldiers to continue the fight in the First World War against the other group of people, etc., made situations more worse. And one another problem also faced Russia during those times was that as the able or fit persons were sent to war, and the numbers of farmlands or factories or industries, etc., were faced the problem of lack of workers. So lockdowns happened in factories, and shortage of food grains happened in everywhere, especially in the village areas or in towns also. So it was another situation that Russia was going to face, that riots or revolutions or problems, etc., started to be in large number in almost every town, especially demanding bread or food items. One another important factor that also had its own role in the Russian Revolution was River Neva. Why is it special is that the two banks of River Neva contain two different groups of population. Right side of River Neva was filled with workers or farmers, and the left bank of River Neva with all the other great personalities, just like the building owners or the official buildings or Winter Palace or other great personalities, especially rich section of the society were in the left bank side. And when the shortage of food grains happened in Russian society, it deeply affected the group of people that is in the right bank side of River Neva. There were farmers and workers were joined, or they lived there. So many problems happened or started in the right side of River Neva, later turned as a fight against both these groups. So when for food grains were not much available, from February 1917 itself onwards, many confusions were there, many problems were there in in Russia. So all the happenings in 1917 February together known as February Revolution. Let us go through the day by day incidents of Russia from February 22 onwards in 1914. So February 2nd is considering as the first day where workers of a factory started their strike. And in the next day, February 23rd, 50 factory workers joined in the strike, in which lots of women also started to participate. But no any political parties organized, or no any support from the political parties by the beginning. So in order to protect the people, or in order to protect the other side, that is the left side of river Neva, where the officials or the palace etc. Consist, the police or the government of Russia started to get the support of police and the military. And in order to protect the officials and the royal family itself, the government imposed a curfew. That means restrictions on the movement of people from one corner to another. So anyhow the workers or the strikers dispersed on first day or on the day. And in the next day, that is on 24th and on 25th February, people again came back to start their strike against all these government officials and were very much angry towards all the situations which created by the rulers and his supporters. But anyhow, again, the different situations continuously going on. On 25th February, the Duma or the parliament was suspended or dismissed. And almost all the political parties were not at all much happy to hear about the situation. They really criticized. And in 26th February, again the workers or the strikers came back with much force to attack every of the official buildings including police stations. And on 27th February, the lots of workers, especially the strikers, were filled in the streets with some slogans just like bread, then wages, then democracy and better hours of their duty. So in order to control the situation, government sought the help of cavalry or the soldiers. But anyhow, cavalrymen were not at all willing to fight or to fire against these strikers. They were a kind of supporters of the strikers because they also were waiting for some changes in the administrative system. And on the same day, on 27th February, these striking workers gathered in the same palace where the Duma met in order to create or to form or to manage a council or Soviets for their own. That also happened on 27th February. Anyhow, as the situations were becoming more worse day by day, the officials or the military men also advised Nicholas II to abdicate his throne. So he obeyed their advices and he abdicated his throne on March 2nd. And this incident, that is the abdication of throne by Nicholas II, is considering as the great change that happened in the Russian Revolution. This incident is known as February Revolution, where monarchy came to an end and the Soviet rulers or the radicals etc. started to think about what would be the future of Russia. So they started to think about the formation of a constituency and also were working for an elected government. So the cancellation or the abdication of Nicholas II is considering as a turning point where monarchy ended and democratic ideologies under Alexander Kerensky started to form, and under him, under the leadership of Soviet and Alexander Kerensky, a provisional government started to form in Russia. So all the incidents that happened in February 1917 is termed as February Revolution. That is the end of monarchy and the beginning of another representative type of government started to happen in Russia in February 1917. That incident is called the February Revolution. So students, we have discussed today the day-to-day changes that happened in Russia during February 1917. All that incident and its after effect in the form of February Revolution together. So we can conclude our today's lesson here and we need to continue with the remaining portion, that is October Revolution, in the next class. So keep watching, read well, make notes, study well. Thank you. Have a nice day.